Hey, hello, what's up, everybody? Official scorecard here. I'm gonna be doing this live today alone. Corruption's not here. Yeah, the reason for it is that we were not able to cover the fights from the previous week, and I doubt that I would be available this Sunday. So for the past week, the whole week, I wanted to cover the fights that happened the previous weekend, and also talk about a fight that happened the last night, the light flyweight fight, title fight between Mthalane and Sunny Edwards. Yeah, so I have a lot of notes here about the fights from the previous week, but yeah, I'm gonna go from the top of my dome for this Mthalane versus Edward fight that took place the last night. Yeah, so I was rooting for Mthalane, and I'm sure if Corruption was here today, he would tell you that. I mean, I know for a fact that he's probably still heartbroken that we couldn't include him on our top 10 pound for pound list, and it just tells you of how good of a fighter Mthalane is. Mthalane, who's been undefeated for a very long time, for more than a decade. His last defeat coming from the fight he had against Nonito Donaire in 2008, if I'm not wrong. And he's been able to defeat Casimero and other very, very good fighters. So, yeah, look, let's get straight into it. And if you know me, you know how much I love to shit on those bitches commentators. They're terrible. They're terrible everywhere. And man, the competition is so strong. We're living, I would say, we are living in a golden era of shit commentators, where all these fuckers are just competing. Which one of them is gonna say the most outrageous shit? What's up, Duck? Big up, thank you for being here. Haven't seen you in a long time, man. Thank you for tuning in. As well, shout out to Nes Mendoza, Mr. Mendoza for you. And John Gonzalez, of course. Big up to all of you, and to anyone else who will be joined later or would be listening to the stream later after it's finished. Yeah, but let's get into this fighting between Mthalane and Edwards. Mthalane was a favorite, although I've been seeing all over the social media, on other people's streams, in the chat rooms as well, on Twitter, that I was fearing that if it goes to distance, and if Mthalane, just in case Mthalane deserves the victory, that he gonna get robbed. Now, in my opinion, well, Charlie Edwards won this fight definitely, but it was just man, these BT commentators, they're just terrible. What was the last time I was watching to a BT transmission? Was it the guy that fought Kovalev versus well, the two British light heavyweights, if I'm not wrong? And or no, maybe it was Dubois versus Joe Joyce. Anyways, I was fed up with them, because despite Sunny Edwards defeating Mthalane, I was just amazed of how biased they were. Okay, so Duck in the chat room saying BT commentators were even much worse in the Camlon fight. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it, Duck. Only that I couldn't give a fuck about that fight, and I tried to watch it, but I was not really interested into it. So I finally decided not to watch it and watch the other people's streams, Thunderdome stream, until the main event. And I tried to take a look a few times at the fight. I was not extremely interested about that Conlon's fight, but from the looks of it, he looked to me very sloppy, very predictable, telegraphing his punches, no good timing. Hey, Sina Mosia. Hello, my friend. Hello. Yeah, Doc. In fact, I read your comments. Was it in the Discord or on Thunderdome stream, saying that, and a lot of people. I mean, all the people saying that fight was very close, but they were not surprised that Conlon got the decision. Yeah, Doug saying, I watch about everything official. I have low standards. Oh, konnichiwa, Sinamosia, konnichiwa. O genki desu ka? Dead guy, what's up? What's up, bro? Thank you all for being here. Yeah, so those were just a few words about Conlon and his fight that I couldn't be bothered to watch. Just a few glimpses of it that I caught, but not the main event of the last night's show. First, and from what I remember, Doc, I saw you and Shep saying the same thing as the commentators, which I completely disagree, to be honest. You guys all had like 4-0 after the first 4 rounds. Well, I mean, not a big deal, because I would say for the entirety of this fight, Mthalane, even the rounds that he won, most of them, not all, but most of them, I would say he wasn't winning them by a big margin. I would say that some of the rounds that Edwards won were more impressive. He was looking more impressive, Edwards, in the rounds that he won than Mthalane was looking in the rounds that I gave to Mthalane. Now, first round I gave to Mthalane. Sorry for not probably not pronouncing his name well. Yeah, Doug saying I scored it 8-4 in the end official. Well, I'll get to it. Yeah, I have something interesting to say about it. So keep your ears open. I'll come to it later. Yeah, so first round I gave to Mthalane, and about around since the 5th round on, I really stopped scoring it. Probably because I was annoyed by the commentators from BT Sport. But anyways, yeah, I would say even the 4th round, it was very close, and I thought that it should go to Mthalane, but the 5th round, the 3rd round, especially from Edwards, was very impressive. So Mthalane was trying to, he was pressuring him from and keeping the range at the same time, jumping in from outside to mid-range, trying to catch him, coming straight in, while Edwards was using this non-stop lateral movement. Now, for my taste, it was too much running. That's something, if you know me, you know that I don't like to see those these type of fights. But yeah, I can see Edwards was very very good at what he was doing. And I must say that his lateral movement was looking very impressive. But on the other hand, Mthalane, he has such a good a quality basic high guard that, in my opinion, he was blocking 98% of the punches, at least in the first 2/3 of the fight. For the first eight rounds, he was doing a great job of blocking a really huge amount of Edwards punches. Now, Edwards, to his credit, yeah, he was placing some good body shots since the first round. He was looking to work the body. So, especially just like I said, in the third round, he placed some impressive body shots. But not only that round, throughout the fight, he was very dedicated to landing body shots while moving laterally, pivoting on his front southpaw lead right foot. So yeah, that was definitely a very good performance from Sonny Edwards. But however, I thought that a huge amount of his punches were blocked by Mthalane. And if you know me, you know me. I mean, to me, my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to scoring rounds is the amount of landed punches, the amount of the number of landed punches, who outlanded who, and who was landing at the same time, who was landing the better shots. All of the other things. I mean, you can make an opponent look stupid throughout the whole round, the entire round, but if he's able to outland you despite making him look bad by hitting the air, if he outlanded you in a round, I'm gonna give it to him. Now, yeah, we can go even deeper than that, but I'm not gonna go that deep. That's another topic. Scoring the rounds, the criteria for scoring the rounds. So yeah, but I was impressed with Mthlane's defense, especially since he is always coming forward, and with his lateral movement, moving all around the ring. Edwards was really able to keep Mthlane's usually extremely high output to a minimum. Although it was pretty high still. I mean, he's throwing punches nonstop, but not as much as in his other fights, previous fights. Mthalane, who's 38, 39 years old, 38 in my opinion, which is like a dinosaur in those lower weight classes, and it's very impressive what he's able to do. Now about his defense, it reminds me. And now, look, he's coming from South Africa. It's definitely not the same country as Ghana. We are talking about two completely different African countries, so I'm not gonna like I don't know how to say it, but I'm not gonna draw some stupid comparisons just because both countries are from Africa. But his defense really remind me of that of that style taught in Accra, Ghana. High guard. I mean, they're really impressive with how they're able to block punches with their high guard. And that's something that, yeah, Dak, exactly, Joshua Clady, and many others. That style, I mean, in one of the future episodes, I'm gonna describe it. What's the difference? How they're able to block so many punches with their high guard. but that's a topic for another conversation, for another episode. Um, yeah, Duck also said previously, I liked how Sunny said post-fight that the 120, 108 scorecard was nonsense, and it was more 8-4 or 7-5 in his eyes, class act. Absolutely, absolutely, and I'll get to it too, because these commentators are saying so much bullshit. Notably, I don't even think they maybe gave and barely gave one single round to Mthalane, which was crazy. From what I remember, and I haven't rewatched the fight. I watched it. I only watched it live once the last night. But from what I'm able to remember, I thought that the seventh round was the most impressive round for Mthalane, who was really landing a lot of great punches on him. Was able to pin him down the ropes and hit him with body shots, punches to the head, even hurt him. But those cocksuckers from BT, they still gave it to. They said something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, another round for Edwards." Now, but by the end of the fight, Mthalane was getting even more aggressive, but it also meant that he was that those were more chances for Edwards to make him look bad by pivoting when Mthalane was jumping in, timing Mthalane stepping into his range and pivot on the front foot and pivot out and make him hit the air with his combos. So yeah, but even in those last rounds, despite looking bad, Mthalane was able to nick some rounds, to get to win the rounds, and yeah, so it was just insane what the commentators, the cocksuckers from BT, were saying. Hold on. Now, yeah. What was I about to say? Yeah, this fight was another fight that reminds me of Julio Cesar Chavez versus Pernell Whitaker, in a sense that, look, those fighters are not really the same stylistically. Although Mthalane was pressuring Edwards and Edwards was on the back foot, just like with Chavez and Pernell, but they're completely different fighters. Mthalane isn't the same fighter, the same type of fighter as Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., nor Edwards is like Pernell Whitaker. But I'm not talking about the styles. I'm talking about winning the rounds, especially those late rounds. Yeah, while Edwards was able to make Mthalane look stupid by lunging in and hitting the air with 2, 3, 4-piece combos. Like I'm saying, a lot of those rounds, the late rounds, Mthalane was winning them. And I told you, Mthalane especially started turning the hit from the 6, 7 round on. And so the post-fight interview, the BT commentators were praising Edwards. I mean, and indeed it was a quality performance from him. Definitely credit to him, credit to Edwards. He won the fight. I'm not complaining about it, and I have nothing bad to say about him. Now, it's just how much cocksucking the commentators were doing on him, and so he discredited those cocksuckers himself, and he did a great job. In fact, huge credit to Sonny Edwards for that. Now, Duck in the chat room, he's saying he also praised Mthalani's high guard, by the way, official, that was very hard, that it was very hard to get his punches through. Exactly. Yeah, see, that part, I don't even remember that part exactly. I forgot it. But it's the same thing that I was seeing throughout this whole fight. Now, indeed, near the end of the fight, Sonny Edwards was having more success with landing his punches on Mthalane, but he was honest enough to say the same thing that I was seeing and many other people were seeing throughout the fight, and he clearly negated this narrative that the BT commentators, cocksuckers, were spewing. Yeah, he said that, but the other two things he was saying is that from the 6-7 round, her legs were so tired, and he started getting hit with some very good punches that Mthalane basically gave him hell. And like I told you, in between the 7th and the 8th round, commentators were agreeing that the 7th round was Edwards' round, while in reality it was the best round that Mthalane had in this whole fight, and where he really outlanded him. And by the way, I would say that throughout the fight, the best punches were landed by Mthalane. And like Doug said, while commentators were talking about some imaginary 120 to 108 fight in Edwards' favor, Edwards said it himself. He thought it was much more like 8-4 or 7-5 type of fight, in his opinion, and I completely agree with that. I thought it was that kind of fight, and it was definitely a class act. So big up to Edwards for that. Really, he really displayed a great lateral movement, very good timing, nice combos. So props to him, and as well props to Moruti Mthalane, a great champion, a 38 years old veteran who always wanted to fight nothing but the best, who's been undefeated, been a champion for more than a decade. Big up to him. Yeah, so now that was about this fight in between Mthalane and Edwards. Now let's go to the fights from the previous weekend, such as Emmanuel Navarrete versus Christopher Diaz, Xander Zass versus DeMarcus Layton, Joseph Adorno versus Jermaine Ortiz, Edgar Berlanga versus Demond Nicholson. Oh, what else is there? Yeah, but also Daigo Higa versus a prospect named Ryosuke Nishida, as well as the return of 108 champion, another champion from 108. You know that we covered Corruption and myself, we were covering Hiroto Kyoguchi, but the other one, Kenshiro Teraji versus Tetsuya Hisada. And a couple of awards on Kerman Leharaga versus Jazz Smith, and on Kazuto Yoka situation. So I think we are going to start with the Puerto Rican card, and probably start with the main event. We'll get to it. But I also have some good things to say about Berlanga. Now, I clearly I'm clearly seeing his limits, but I think there is a hope for him. But let's go to Emmanuel Navarrete versus Christopher Diaz, which was the main event of the Puerto Rican card. I mean, excuse me. I don't remember exactly where this fight took place, in which of the American cities, but the card was all Puerto Rican. So let's read my notes. And I took a lot of notes. I really have a lot of interesting points to make about this fight, but just like you can, before that, like you see on the screen, guys, please go donate if you're able to donate to GoFundMe page for Gonzalo's newborn son. The link is in the description. I'm gonna also post it in the chat room. Just give me a second. Here it is. Okay, so the thing is, Gonzalo, many of you may know him, a really great guy. He's a Mexican American. He's the US Army veteran whose hospital expenses would be covered if he was living in the US, in the United States. But the thing is, he's living in the Philippines, and his hospital bills are not covered, unfortunately. And his son, who's been born, who was born in February, I think, if I'm not wrong, has been was only able to spend 3 days out of hospital. So a really sad situation for Gonzalo's son, for Gonzalo and his family to go through all this. He had pneumonia and some other respiratory problems. So he was the baby was forced to have a tracheal tube down his throat for multiple months already, despite the tracheal tube being how do you say it, being supposed to be used for no more than 2 weeks, and it's been more than 2 months that it's the case. So and then plus there were complications with the tracheal tube, the size of it. They should been using the smallest, the tracheal tube of the smallest size, but they were unable to find it. It's very difficult to find it around the world. And yeah, I mean, when the GoFundMe page, was started, he was already like more than $13,000 in debt, even more. And since then, the GoFundMe page was started for him, but it was only covering the expenses made up till the moment the GoFundMe page was started. But since the GoFundMe page was started, his newborn son, his newborn baby Matteo, still had to be kept in the hospital. So the expenses are growing, and the thing is that in the Philippines, like in some other countries of the third world, if you're not able to cover the expenses, to pay for them, they would kick the baby out of hospital, which I don't have to tell you how terrible it would be. So please check the link. If you're able, donate something, but please make sure to share the link, because it doesn't cost anything. But you may never know how many people may see it, how many people that GoFundMe link may reach, and by you just simply sharing the link can make the difference. So I wish Matteo as well as Gonzalo, their whole family, much courage, much luck, the strength, and big thanks to everyone who's already been donating and trying to help them out, trying to raise the awareness of what's happening. So I wish them good luck. Big up Mark, aka Unravel Boxing Talk, who's one of the channels who's been raising the funds, did a great job raising the funds for Gonzalo's baby Matteo by doing a 7 days long stream. Big props. Speak Your Minds. This page, what's his page? Speak Your Minds Sport TV, something like that. Is doing the same thing. It's been 4 days since they've been on air streaming, raising the awareness, trying to help donate. Oh, corruption is sending me the message asking for the link. Here it is. Hold on. Okay, corruption, the link is sent. Yeah, so Speak Your Mind Sports TV is already on the air, raising the awareness about Gonzalo's and his baby's Matteo's situation. We all wish them well, hoping everything is gonna be all right. Otherwise, big up to Triple JJJ and to Vader D. What's up, guys? Vader D saying justice for Sokolovsky. I mean, I wasn't watching that card, but I was reading the comments all over the Discord. I mean, I heard of how terrible of a robbery it was. But yeah, let's just hang on for a second and see. Oh, corruption is here, great. So corruption, what's up?
Yeah.
How you've been doing?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Okay, yeah, so like I told you the last night, I was supposed to go live, but I was tired. And I chose to do it today simply because I'm not sure that I will be available this Sunday, probably, but I'm not sure. So at the same time, I wanted to cover the fights from the last week in this one. Do you have anything to say about the Mthalane Edwards fight or anything?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about that specific fight. I watched only half of the fight yesterday evening. I sort of left in a bit of disgust, but I came back to it this morning, cleared my mind after a few muffins. The problem with Maruti in this fight, I think that the fundamental problem against sort of an erratic, elusive back foot switch hitting style is that Maruti never jabbed or double jabbed on his way in. And that was the big problem in the fight. He was facing an opponent who had superior hand speed and foot speed by virtue of significant youth, massive age discrepancy between the two. So Maruti is the shorter orthodox fighter. If you're not jabbing or double jabbing on your way in, then how are you going to impose pressure? How are you going to back the opposition fighter up against the ropes in an ideal real estate where you can actually land, trap him, and then land your heavier combinations to break him down and ultimately knock him out, which was his objective. So, number one, you're not pushing Sonny Edwards back with any physical force. So therefore he can, because of his height as well and his length, then he can just sort of pick off at long range. He knows there's no imminent danger. And then number two, you're not setting up your punches. So therefore you're not calculating the correct range against a fighter who is in perpetual motion all the time. He's up and he's bouncing left, right on his toes, orthodox southpaw. He's switching the angle. So he's making your already difficult target already harder. And it's already harder as it is because your hand-eye coordination is not that brilliant because you're 38 years old and you're fighting after a long time and you're fighting in the UK. So Maruti didn't help himself in any capacity in this fight. So when you're just lunging in with punches, trying to land, left hands to the body, Sonny can see the punches, and then hence he was just able to, pick, throw that sweeping right hook, which he does when he's in a southpaw, and just get out of there. Maruti didn't try and throw any left hooks to try and cut off the ring, which you really need to do against somebody, especially against a southpaw like that, who he's going to pivot out on his right. So he was able to spin out quite consistently. So yeah, frustrating for me in that sense. He was doing a much better job when John Real Casimiro was moving around the ring back in South Africa years ago. That was somebody who was significantly younger. Maruti was a lot younger then, but he was just far more active, threw more punches, was more nimble on his feet, was cutting off the ring a lot better as well. But they must have anticipated this in watching preparation videos. Charlie Edwards is a horrible mover and he's an arm puncher. There's no power punches there. He's slapping with his right hooks as well. You're not going to be significantly hurt. So you can take risks, but when you're redacting your volume and you're not implementing the correct countermeasures against a back foot mover, a lateral mover. That was one of the reasons why, I thought, fuck this, I'm not going to watch this. We knew Edwards weren't going to engage. This is going to be Demetrius Andrade version 2, but more painful to watch because Andrade at least, does have a little bit of pop in his punches, but Edwards doesn't. He's an arm puncher. And when you've got 3 judges, you've got a British referee, Howard Foster, British promoter, and you're fighting in Britain, every conceivable element is against you in this favor. Howard Foster didn't allow any infighting when they were actually close, breaking it up. And we know that, he's been always the go-to referee for all of these fights, for all of the Carl Froch disgusting fights. Him and John Lewis, those 2 fighters, they're subservient to their masters, and that is the promoter. And no doubt about it, Frank Warren said to Howard Foster, as soon as there's no significant distance between the two, just, Roberto Rosario Jr., man, maybe we should have played the B-Boys intro again, but I don't know officially. To me, this is just not boxing, man. It's no inclination of engaging and fighting, but that was what he was going to do. So there's no surprise element there. I thought Maruti would fight better, but he fought the total wrong game plan, and it's self-inflicted for me. You cannot blame the judges. You know they were going to be 100% biased. When I left after 5-6 rounds, I told, what did I say? I said he's going to get UD 119.09, 120, whatever. It's going to be something like that. I'm not surprised, you know. But yeah, that's my really sort of high level overview of, you know, what transpired in the fight.
Yeah. Corruption giving some excellent blows up and down, like he's always doing. Yeah, but it was boring to see. I mean, we knew what type of fight it's gonna be, but maybe I don't know. I wasn't really doing any analysis of how would it go, but I was kind of expecting Mthalane to prevail and probably not go not stop him, but go to distance and get trapped. That's what I thought is gonna happen, but I was expecting that kind of fight. So yeah, man, didn't really enjoy it, but it is what it is. Now, have you seen? Do you want to talk about Emmanuel Navarrete versus Christopher Diaz?
No, you can go ahead. I didn't see that fight in its entirety.
Okay, because I took a lot of notes that I'm going to read about this card. So okay, I'm gonna go with Navarrete Diaz. Okay, so Navarrete, he would engage in an exchange, disengage, and let Diaz step out. Then Navarrete would start taking a really slow step forward with his lead foot, looking as he would need to take 3 or 4 steps just to get into Diaz's range. But thanks to his height and his very long limbs, and his proclivities for surprising his opponents, jumping from out of range with some crazy unexpected punches, at the last moment he would take a really long step and would throw long jab, like 1-2-1s and things like that, where he was able to surprise Diaz from the opening round, as he's doing with his other opponents, making it look like he's very well out of range, and then jumping, take this huge step in, and then catch you with something. And from there he would follow up with overhand right, and then lean to his left, place his left hooks, left uppercuts. I mean, this was the first time I was watching his fight and really analyzing what he was doing, and he's definitely a beast, but there are a lot of things that could be exploited when it comes to fighting Navarrete, and I thought that Diaz showed us some of those things. But to get back to Navarrete and his other proclivities, another thing that he's doing is that he slips on the inside of a jab, and while he's slipping your jab to the inside, he feints an overhand counter, but actually counter you with a lead left uppercut or left hook instead. So those are really some really creative combos, punches, counter, some unpredictable counters, and he can even do the same thing while leading, feinting an overhand right while he's leaning to his left. placing his head over his lead foot, and then catch you with a crazy uppercut, things like that. In fact, his style is built around these things: circling to his left, jumping in from long range with a jab or overhand right feint, while dipping to his lead foot that is closer to you, and from there he would use his left hand, and he would even end very often. What he would do is he would end up in an off balance position, but even despite being in an off balance position, he's able to counter from there. Now, for sure, that can be exploited, and it was exploited by Diaz to some extent, but it's still very unorthodox and hard to time. Other things that Navarrete likes to do is to throw the overhand right, still end up leading over his lead foot. And
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of these fighters like Navarrete and Demetrius Andrade and Terence Crawford as well. A lot of them are actually lead hand heavy. We know that Andrade is a right-handed southpaw, so his power punching is his right hand, his right uppercut, his hooks, and his jab. And with Navarrete, he's very lead hand dominant, but in an orthodox stance, but he can switch. Hence the reason why he's throwing those lead uppercuts. Very unorthodox fighter, throwing those lead hard uppercuts, those left hands to the body, which are very, very damaging shots. But Diaz was circling in the wrong direction, and hence he was getting picked off with the uppercut. And we see what Liam Williams, he was getting lead foot advantage on the outside of a southpaw, which is the correct thing to do to negate Andrade's, his jab to open up Liam's right hand. But then Liam maybe not realizing that Andrade's lead hand is actually his heaviest hand. He would take a step to the right so he could actually fire that uppercut. And with Crawford, we see that he switches to southpaw because his right hand is his more dominant hand, so he's able to almost fence and keep people at distance and fire hard punches without a lot of talk, sometimes with his lead hand, which some people don't really gauge. They're thinking that his backhand is going to be the harder punch from a southpaw, so you get that imminent sort of confusion. You don't know what's going to be, which artillery is going to be the heavier you're going to have to avoid. So with Navarrete, given that he's unorthodox as it is, so he's kind of hard to read and gauge. But when he does that, he tends to fire that uppercut from so far away. He's not even getting in close when he's doing it. So he's firing it from range, and he takes a really weird stance. He tends to dip down with his back knee. It is a crazy position. It's a non-textbook how he fires it, but good instincts to actually land it. He knows he can sort of calculate the range in which he has to and the angle as well. And he always comes back with that short right hook as well, right hand, sometimes straight right hand. Yeah, quite a very, very, very anti-Mexican style of fighting.
Yeah.
Very bizarre, unique, and we tend to criticize Isaac Dogboe in those two fights, but a lot of people at the time didn't quite really understand that Navarrete would turn out to be a very good sort of dominant champion. But even if you just extrapolate certain parts of those two fights, certainly in the first fight, Isaac Dogboe did a hell of a lot better than all of these guys have done subsequent. He actually hurt Navarrete quite a few times. I thought in the first fight that there was moments in which Dogboe could have actually inflicted a knockdown as well. he's a brawler, likes to get on people's chest, and sometimes it's not a bad style because Navarrete will engage, but he can if he's having difficulty sometimes against a smaller fighter, that's when he sometimes resorts to using movements, and that's where he fires that lead left hand, then sort of moves so he can stick and move just as well. And his power doesn't seem to sap when he's actually on the move. And there's very few fighters out there who can actually generate just as much power with their feet when they're not actually sitting down on their punches and throwing punches at weird angles. He's a puzzle box that you gotta have to the conundrum that you're gonna have to solve. Now Luis Neri did it very, very early on, but that was a completely Neri back then. And the different Navarrete didn't really have the seasoning of good opposition. But Diaz wasn't too bad in this fight. He lost his obviously a world championship fight against the Japanese fighter Ito, who didn't have a lot of versatility in his punches or his combinations. A little bit too reliant on an overhand right hand, which was landing quite a lot. Sometimes Ito wouldn't even jab and abandon the jab as well. Just be looking for lead power hands, but his timing was just right in that fight, and he did a good look. He did a lot of good things in this fight as well. Good combinations. Showed that Navarrete's defense, certainly from his forearms and on the way down, he doesn't protect his body that well, and you can definitely pick him off with some nice feints. He was doing feints and then landing to the body, some nice combinations. But you're going to get those opportunities against an attacking fighter who's always looking to come straight back at you with a counter. He's not running like Sonny Edwards, gone straight away. He's there. He's more than happy, and he wants to, he wants to trade, exchange, and ultimately wants to knock you out if he can do so. So you're going to get opportunities, and you're going to get some great exchanges. And certain parts of this fight, it was decent. Diaz showed great spirit as well, getting up from some vicious knockdowns. I think it was that lead. What round was that lead uppercut?
Fourth round.
Fourth round, yeah. Like a jack in the box, he just sort of springs from nowhere.
Yeah. And speaking of Navarrete's unorthodoxy, what I saw him doing more than once in this fight against Diaz was that he would jump with an overhand right from the outside, end up in a southpaw stance, switching his stance at short range, end up at short range and as a southpaw, then would create the room with that right elbow after throwing that overhand right, and push him back just to make enough room for his left hook from the southpaw stance, and then would get out. Really, a lot of crazy things that he's doing, and
that is it, official. It's that improvisation where he when he generates and he'll get off balance, but once he's off balance, he'll just, rather than go back and be telegraphed, he'll just carry on that momentum because he's comfortable from the other stance. So that is actually quite a nice attacking move. He's thinking, fuck it, man, let me just sort of spin round into the other position and then come straight back with a punch. So Diaz is thinking, what the fuck is going on here, man? He sort of spun right around. But rather than trying to understand where he is, he's trying to fire his jab, but he's missing because he's now in a southpaw stance, and Navarrete comes straight back with his own jab, double jab, and then right hand before Diaz could even reset his feet, thinking that I've got to now shift to the right because he's over there now.
Yeah,
kind of weird.
Yeah, and well, just what you said. Instead of going back to his orthodox stance, he's just working from there, from the southpaw stance. So it makes me think, and without trying to get too philosophical with Navarrete's awkwardness, he seems like a good example of what Bruce Lee would say, be like water. And what I mean by that, he would almost constantly get into an off-balance position while attacking, which puts all the fighters at risk, but is prepared for his opponents trying to attack him while he's being in such a position. So he's ready to protect himself and counter from such a position, or step out, or get at another angle, use the offhand. And those are the things that also remind me in some kind of way of Jean-Riel Casimero at some point. Although Jean-Riel Casimero is not as unorthodox as Navarrete, but he would do the same thing, get into an off-balance position, and then just be careful enough not to get hit, or to know what to do while he's in such a position.
The fighter who does that a lot, swing himself off balance, and then is Israel Madrimov. He does that a lot.
Yeah.
And then fire from the opposite position, because he's loading up so heavily, swinging himself like he's stoned, swinging him off in circles, and then coming back in the other stance, and then carrying on, leaping in with hooks. Can you imagine the fight if they were at the same weight, Madrimov and Navarrete?
Oh yeah,
that would be an insane fight.
Indeed. And you made a lot of great points about Diaz. Look, in my opinion, on scorecard, scoring it round by round, I would say Navarrete probably won most of the rounds. I was not really keeping a score, but it's only because those rounds where Diaz was being a better fighter, he got knocked down in many of those, because there were a couple of knockdowns, not just one single knockdown. And just like you mentioned, the body shots, he was doing a great job. And here I took a lot of notes of what Diaz was doing effectively, not to the point of being able to win the fight, but just showing you of what you can do against Navarrete. So I would say
they gifted Navarrete a TKO, no? Just to keep him relevant.
It was such a... I mean, I don't know what the fuck was happening with the referees that night, but yeah, it was a gift KO. Just especially it was the case with Berlanga and Nicholson. But to get back to Diaz, he was catching him with some really good counter left hooks when Navarrete was looking to step in from a long range with a lead left hook or lead left hand, lead uppercut, often thrown behind that overhand right feint. Now, Christopher Diaz was pulling his head over his rear foot as he was throwing those left hook counters in order to evade Navarrete's left hook and uppercut. So he was doing a good job of, later Navarrete adapted even to it, but he was doing a good thing of, just like with the clip I was showing in the exchange in between Golovkin and Derevyanchenko, both of them throwing a left hook, but Golovkin being the one who as he's throwing his left hook, he's placing his upper body from his lead foot over back to his rear foot. And so it was the same tactic with which Diaz was able to counter Navarrete without being counter himself. But Navarrete showed that he could adapt to it, so he started feinting those lead left hooks and uppercuts, waiting to Diaz to throw counter and pull his head back over, and then step in and counter Diaz's counter. Diaz then started keeping him off balance by using constant lateral movement from the fourth round on, and in the meantime finding room for a jab to the body, which was very constant. And the jab to the body was very good, and I would say he depleted Navarrete's stamina to some point. And that lateral movement and stepping out of range every time Navarrete was stepping in his range were making it much harder for Navarrete's offense to land. And Diaz would throw a jab stepping to the left to provoke the overhand right counter from Navarrete, and then would time it, slip and time it, counter it, come back over with it. He would also throw body shots, combos up and down, starting to the body and ending up landing a left hook to Navarrete's head. So there were a lot of things that I saw from Diaz that could be useful for the future opponents of Navarrete. I also saw Diaz giving him problems moving forward, using the upper body movement and blocking and being compact and placing shots to the body, just like you said. A lot of left hooks to the body. Unfortunately, in that fourth round, he got dropped, but I felt like he was definitely winning that round. And another thing that Diaz was doing well was countering in combos while he was pressuring Navarrete. So I felt like being an aggressive counter puncher, stacking Navarrete while being compact, without getting off balance, because being coming forward counter puncher and pressure fighter against Navarrete and staying on balance all the time gives you the opportunity to counter at a split second when Navarrete finishes off balance, as he's always doing. So that was another thing that he was doing well. And to say finally about this fight...
Great points, man. Very, very great. Excellent points.
Thank you. And despite being visibly outpunished and dropped not only in the fourth, but also twice, in the seventh round and twice in the eighth round, before finally being stopped in the 12th, Diaz's offense was finding some success and showed me a lot about how to beat him by inching towards Navarrete and staying on balance all the time, just like I said, thus being able to throw punches at any moment instead of bouncing around. He was catching him at those moments where Navarrete would get off balance, and sometimes would follow it up with a double or triple jab to keep him that way, to keep him off balance. After countering him with some hard shot, he would come back with double and triple jabs to keep him off balance, unable to get back to a balanced position, before throwing other punches. But being that he was taking a lot of punishment in the process from a much bigger opponent, he wasn't able to stop him all the time, so he spent a good portion of those rounds on the back foot as well, moving around and trying to disengage from Navarrete. However, he was constantly landing the body punches, which made Navarrete slow down in the third quarter of the fight and took out some of his explosiveness. That's the way I saw the fight.
That's what you've described and what I described before. I think that's the deficiencies and the vulnerability of Navarrete. Perhaps instead of prognosticating how to beat him, it's when he's stepping in, he's able to get countered, and he's able to get countered to the body. Isaac Dobbe was able to land those body punches, and we showed it was having an effect. And Diaz's punches definitely slowed him down, made him forced to reset. When he's actually using his length and his reach and his explosiveness from sort of mid-range without stepping in, that's when he's a little bit more effective, because it's unorthodox. You're not expecting it. Plus, he has the wingspan to do it. But when he's stepping in, he looks uncomfortable, ungamely, and hence he's more susceptible to those punches. So I think like a counter-punching body puncher, somebody like a Noyo Inoue, that style I think would give and that fight could be feasible because they're only a weight category, well, 2 weight categories difference, but it's a possible, dream sort of fight. But Inui
Great point.
has that style to the body, and he lands those counters to the body, and Inui has that explosiveness and speed to do it as well. Boom, boom, boom. Without the sort of a little bit of telegraphing that because Diaz plays around with his guards, he tends to flick his gloves so the punches are going to come a little bit. He doesn't have that velocity, straight from head to body, which the monster does, and that's what Luis Neri had very early on as well. That explosiveness and speed, especially to the body. It's that sort of style, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, great point. And just like you said, Inoue just has that thing that we were mentioning that would really trouble Navarrete. But just a quick correction. So Duck in the chat room, he's right. It was Corner who stopped it. So yeah, we must have mixed it up with Berlanga Nicholson.
Only the referee can stop the fight. So it doesn't matter what the corner do. Even if they, unless they throw in the towel, but it's the referee who ultimately has to stop the fight. So it doesn't matter about the corner.
Oh, that's something that I was not aware of. That's a very, very interesting point. But I would say me myself, I was probably thinking about the Berlanga Nicholson stoppage. Now, do you have anything to say about that fight?
Berlanga and the Nicholson fight.
Yeah.
Now I saw certain elements of, I saw certain bits of the fight. Now Nicholson, his record was very superficial for me. It indicated, a high knockout percentage, but watching him in the ring, he wasn't a heavy-handed fighter at all. But he was busting Berlanga up. He showed him to be sort of a one-dimensional puncher from sort of mid-range. I wasn't impressed with Berlanga in the fight at all. Nicholson actually was he had a good game plan, and Berlanga is heavy. There's no doubt about it. You can hear the thud on these punches, so definitely is a heavy-handed puncher. But when your promoters are utilizing you and now marketing off your name in the sense of a gimmick, and he's getting embroiled and his ego is getting boosted with all of these knockouts, and we know knockouts, that attracts casual fans, and it's a great way for the promoter to put him on these cards, and he's getting a lot of publicity, and we mentioned last week that he now feels that he's a pound for pound top 10 fighter by virtue of all these early 16 first round knockouts or whatever it is. So we can see it could be just talk or ego, whatever. He's been media trained to do it like that. We know ESPN, the machine behind them, and a lot of casuals are starting to tune in, etc. So it's great for ESPN, great for the crowds that they can see, exciting first round knockouts, and it kind of builds up to the main event as well, because sometimes you don't really want a lethargic, boring undercard fights. You want some, if it's swift, quickly, so you can get to the main event, so people don't mind that at all. So it's a good tool to have for these guys, but the fight, you go ahead with the fight. I didn't see all of the fight.
Okay, yeah, certainly a great thing for Top Rank, to to have such a fighter, to bring some excitement. But those type of fighters are not really developed the right way. But just before going in, I have to issue another correction because I'm fucking off. I don't know what's fucking happening with me because. I said that because I was watching the fight without any sound because you know me, I cannot stand these commentators. So I haven't realized that when the referee waved off, it was to signal the end of the round. So I was not able to hear the bell because I was watching the fight without any sound on. So I thought that Nicholson beat the count, and then referee let him continue, and then change his decision. But no, I was wrong. So, but to get into the fight, this was actually my first time seeing Edgar Berlanga fight. So the way he throws his punches, especially his chopping right hand, by putting 100% of his body weight behind it, told me everything why everybody's talking about his punching power. And just like you said, you can simply hear that by the way his punches sound, that he's a very hard puncher. But the way he's throwing his punches told me also why. I mean, sorry, let me correct myself. It seemed very telegraphed and very predictable to me. Um, Now, the problem is his combos are, to me, kind of too robotic, telegraphed, and too predictable to read, which may be corrected. He's only 23 years old. With more fights like this, instead of knocking all these guys in the first round, he may work on it also in the gym as well. But also when he throws his overhand right, he's constantly ending off balance with his head, ending far in front of his lead knee, and he needs the room to throw his punches, and that is why the Demond Nicholson was able to win most of the exchanges on the inside throughout their fight, whenever he was able to get on the inside. But not only that, Edgar needs the room for his combos, but he also needs his opponents to be stationary in order to land his combos, because Berlanga himself not only needs to plant his feet to throw the combos, but also needs to throw them from the same range, which is the mid range. And the Nicholson lateral movement was also preventing him to set his feet. There were many moments where Berlanga would stop at mid-range and start throwing combos, but Nicholson would step in or out of range and make him miss. So that as well, being at mid-range and then stepping out of range also makes him miss, because when he started his combos, he sat in one same position, But the problem with Nicholson is that he wasn't constantly stepping back in with counters, but spent a lot of time on the outside, probably because he was too worried about his power, which is great indeed. And so he wasn't willing to risk getting clipped at mid-range too much on his way to the inside. When Nicholson was getting on the inside, he was doing so right behind his straight punches, through a jab or straight right, and then duck underneath and step in front of him, shoulder to shoulder, and get to an angle. The first knockdown occurred in the second round when Nicholson made a pause after moving laterally to lead with his right hand, but he found himself in a very terrible balance position while doing so, with his whole upper body leaning over his lead knee, and he was intending to weave to the angle on his right to change the angle after that right hand lead right, but Berlanga had an excellent answer, and he caught him. He clipped him with a left hook, and then dropped him. Now, the good things about Berlanga, I saw him that. Hold on, there are notes that I took. Couple of good things that he could improve. The notions of the upper body movement, rolling with punches, pulling his head over his back foot to make the opponent miss, pulling his head over the back foot when throwing a left hook, kind of the same thing that Diaz was doing against Navarrete. And he was also doing something that Loma is doing, slapping a guard down and punching with the other hand. And the point is, there is a possibility we see him improve further some of those skills, or that he's already working with them on them in the gym, you know. So I would not be surprised if he is able to improve those things and become a better fighter. Now, I have to shit on the ref. The second knockdown was bullshit, as Berlanga was pushing Nicholson's neck down while hitting him with two left hands clearly to the back, you know, to the back of Nicholson, because dropping him by pushing him down behind his neck. And yeah, I wanted also to mention the stoppage, but it wasn't a stoppage. So basically, yeah, Berlanga showed that for now, at least, he's a very limited fighter and that he has a lot of things to improve. But I saw those couple of things that seem to me as if he's already working on them, but that need to be polished. So I would not be, you know, surprised if he's able to improve some parts of his game. Now, I just want to quickly mention two more fights from this card. The Puerto Rican talent Xander Zayas was fighting DeMarcus Layton. He's only 18 years old, and his performance kind of reminded me of the way Ortiz was fighting against Hooker, starting overly aggressive, operating behind a high guard, and trying to use the distance control before you know, stepping in Layton's range. Now in this fight, he was getting hit once he got on the inside. He got hit with some counters, and his punches seemed telegraphed. But he showed some hand speed, and I was not really impressed with his movement, with his boxing, but I liked his movement. I thought that his thing would be his footwork in the future, you know, improving his distance control, in and out movement. So if that's his style, I'm well looking forward to see more of him. So it was a quick first round stoppage. There's not a lot to talk about the fight, but yeah, I'll be looking forward to Zez's next fight. But to me, the best fight on the card was a fight between two prospects, Joseph Adorno and Jermaine Ortiz. Both of them were undefeated fighters, with Adorno being 14-0 and 1 draw, and Ortiz being 14-0 before the fight, which is a type of fight that we rarely get to see nowadays, and that I was extremely glad to watch, because it was the best fight of the weekend in my opinion, like I said, and all of that despite being an 8-rounder. A really great fight to watch. Watching it live, I thought that Jermaine Ortiz should have edged it out despite getting dropped multiple times, 2 times. But now, once I rewatched it, I had it a draw. But the point with this fight is that it was an excellent fight, and Ortiz was a swarmer, coming forward, and Adorno was a counterpuncher. A lot of good things that I saw in this fight, and so it was very entertaining, an 8-rounder. Other than that, have you seen Kenshiro Teraji's fight, or Daigo Higa versus Nishida?
No, I haven't seen him.
Yeah, so Ryosuke Nishida. I think that he was 4-0, if I'm not wrong, something like that. He's a prospect, and Daigo Higa, who, if I'm not wrong, the reason he's fighting at bantamweight is because he missed the weight, and the rule in Japan is the Japanese Commission is preventing him to fight at his natural weight because he missed the weight, so he had to move up to 118. And I always liked Higa a lot, very extremely entertaining and explosive fighter. But the problem with him is that he's not very creative when it gets to coming on the inside. He's not really able to step to the inside behind his jab. He doesn't have a lot of tricks, in my opinion, to step on the inside. But from the very first round, Nishida, he was staying out of range, and he was showing serious calmness against a much more experienced pressure fighters such as Higa, and he was keeping him at the end of his jab and even keeping it extended. What's the name for it? He was arm stiffing Higa and preventing him to get closer. So at the beginning of the fight, he was fighting him at that long range with a lot of pivots, because Nishida is a southpaw, much longer than Higa, keeping him out of range and doing a lot of good things with his footwork, pivoting around every time Higa would step in, and timing him on his way in with those pivots, but also catching him with check hooks and straight left counters. Now, the thing that I didn't like is that Nishida was at one point he really started arm stiffing and clinching too much, really like too much for my liking. But the later stage of the fight turned out into non-stop exchanges on the inside and at mid-range, where Nishida was doing very well, and his body punching was very good, uppercuts to the body. So it was a very good performance, So I will be looking forward to seeing Nishida back in the ring.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it, Vishal, that we've got a situation in boxing where the boxing public generally criticize so many fighters for being weight bullies, cutting significant weight and then rehydrating massively so they can take advantage of their natural bigger size than their opponent. We see that in every weight class, but with Higa, it's the opposite. He's fighting at a weight category where he really shouldn't be. And now bigger fighters who are naturally cutting down to make the size of where he's had to jump up 2 weights have that numerical advantage over him. And
exactly.
You kind of feel sorry for him, have a little bit of sympathy for him, thinking that he needs to go back to flyweight where he was, because now we're seeing that as a one-dimensional power puncher, he doesn't have those educated feet, lack of creativity, so he kind of homogenous in what he tends to do. The one element where he actually showed a bit of guile against a fighter who could move is when he won the title against Juan Hernandez Navarrete, a guy who could move around. He was a little bit better back then, but against the southpaw he can move. No, he didn't really show a great deal of versatility, but I saw, you sent me the fight. I saw little bits of it. I've just had a horrendous week. As you can see, I haven't watched a lot of fights. It's something I need to go back to and watch in its entirety, definitely.
Yeah, but sorry?
Back to you.
Okay. Yeah, but just so watch Nishida's future fights. I mean, keep an eye on him. That's what I wanted to say because I will do so. But Kenshiro Teraji was back against Tetsuya Hisada. Now, yeah, a fight that neither one of us was very excited about, but I guess Kenshiro coming back after a long layoff, I would say. The last time he fought was in 2019, if I'm not wrong. Maybe maybe I'm correct.
A suspension official. He was caught drink driving in Japan,
Oh,
and they
yeah,
and they
yeah,
suspended
yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah. You're right. You're right. I read about it. Now, in the first round of the fight, Teraji was getting hit with hooks around the guard while trying to control the distance and move laterally. Teraji was constantly controlling the distance and using his rhythm, rocking back and forth to throw his jab, which he was constantly pumping towards Hisada's face. And already in the second round, he baited Hisada to throw a jab, which he timed with the jab and came back with the overhand right, which dropped Hisada. And he was, boxing in the first gear for a big amount of this fight, but I was not really so impressed because in the fourth round already he got caught with the same exact combination, and his defense to me was looking really poorly. Um, he spent a big amount of fight um, just jabbing, throwing some right hand counters, but wasn't really impressive. And after that, it's around at the middle of the fight, he started slowly opening up more and more and throwing combos instead of just pumping a jab and setting Hisada for the rear right hand. But at the same time, he was getting hit a lot. Now he was winning most of the rounds, and I cannot exactly recall of all of the Kenshiro's tendencies from his previous fights because I haven't seen him in a long time. But I saw that in the fifth round when he started planting his feet and staying in the range during the exchanges, he was getting hit cleanly with Hisada's combos and he was getting his head snapped by jabs. And I at least remember seeing him having a better defense and upper body movement in the pocket in his previous fights. But judging from what I saw in this fight, it told me his defense was his footwork, and he was too open up whenever he decided to stay in the pocket and exchange. So in the exchanges, he was not looking very good defensively. At least up till the later stages of the fight. Even in the sixth round, Kenshiro, he was landing good punches and was able to counter Hisada with clean punches multiple times and placed really great body shots. Started getting his timing down, throwing good combos on the move in the pocket, but he was still getting hit cleanly when he was stationary and allowing Hisada to throw combos at him, because whenever Hisada was coming in with multiple punches with combos, some of them would very often would land on him cleanly. And don't get me wrong, Kenshiro was probably winning most of the rounds, but in my opinion, he wasn't looking that great. But from the eighth round on, Kenshiro seemed to finally get in the rhythm, and he was looking great, stepping out of range on Hisada's punches and coming back with counters and switching angles, or slipping to the inside and countering with combos before getting out. This was the moment that he finally started looking really good in this fight, but he was still getting hit with some clean and powerful punches in the process. But at least he seemed like being in a second or third gear, At least in the last third of the fight, his offense was looking much better. So I don't know if it was probably the ring rust, I would say. So I would expect him to get better, but overall, he showed me the glimpses of what he can do, especially in the last third of the fight. But previous to that, he was looking really, I don't know, really bland. His defense was looking not so good to me. Now, before mentioning something interesting about Kazuto Ioka, in fact, who gives a fuck about Leharaga and Jeff Smith fight? Kazuto Ioka. First, it was reported that he tested positive for marijuana around the time of fighting. What's his name? The guy that he just fought, man, Tanaka. But later it came out that it looks like I wasn't really closely following the situation, but that there may be some other substances, illegal substances that he was maybe using allegedly. So I'll keep an eye on it. Other than that, I have nothing much else to say.
I wasn't even aware of Ioka's test results and the time taken to actually publish them, release them into the domain. That's a report I'll be actually keen to obtain and have a look at for myself.
Yeah, that's in fact a good point, because I was asking myself the same thing. Why would those results come out just now? What's that? More than 5 months. I mean, 5 months after that fight. So it's really weird what's happening. And funny thing, Ioka was already questioned by the Japanese police because of the alleged use of marijuana. But
yeah, he's always had a love, if not more of a hate relationship, not only with the community, but there's members of parliament as well. There are many over in Japan who wanted to shorten his career years ago. There was times in which they were even going to revoke his boxing license. So that turbulence doesn't surprise me. It could even be a smear campaign against him to try and further, desecrate his credibility and his reputation. He's kind of that sort of rock star over there, crazy man, which is, given the idiosyncrasies over there. But I don't know officially. As I said, for reports like this, I always like to look at the original source material if I can, and look at the results and the percentages if they're available, to deduce my own conclusions. But,
for sure.
Yeah, if the result hasn't been annulled or retrospectively modified, and I don't think it's going to be anything.
Yeah, but another. Sorry, go on.
Because the B sample would have been tested. We don't even know whether these findings were drawn from just the A sample or the B sample. I've heard nothing personally, but I've not really been following the news over there recently, so I don't know. But they wouldn't be releasing any statements.
Yeah,
prior to the B sample actually being tested, or if he felt that there was any negative information, then he would have requested himself for them to actually test the B sample just to see whether it was a false positive or whether there could be a replication, and therefore there would be sufficient evidence for the drug testing agencies to then make whatever findings. But I don't know, marijuana.
Yeah.
If I had a drug test now, I ain't gonna pass it. So who am I complaining?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, by the way, just like you said, I mean, we don't have enough of informations to know all the details. And just like you said, it's best to draw your own conclusion. You have to be able to see everything, to know all the details, and see if the B sample was actually tested before drawing your conclusion. But there is an important thing that I almost forgot to mention. The thing is, there is some problem with the way the test was taken. So in the same article that I was reading a couple of days ago, it looks like the people or the commission, or I don't know who took the samples, did something stupid, some stupid error. I don't know exactly what is it about, but the way they took it, it was not professional, not by. It was not done the right way, they were supposed to do it. So even a positive test wouldn't. They're saying that even a positive test would probably not matter in the situation.
Yeah. Then it's prone to contamination, because with a lot of these urine samples, the the mechanisms and the bottles come actually directly from. There's two places, from Germany and from Switzerland. So they can't actually be tampered or reopened once they're sort of locked officially. So if there's been some sort of errors in the whole methodology of taking and storing it and then analyzing it, then yeah, they can't really be making these statements about what they found. But if they would have actually have divided the sample into two, so if it's affected the A and the B, then I don't know. I'm gonna have to send me the article when you have. I need to have a look at it and find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, for sure, I'll do it. I'll check. In fact, I'll check.
Who wrote the article? Was it one of the official publications there, or was it an independent journalist?
The thing is, I'm not sure about it. I think it was a journalist. I got that link from Asian Boxing on Twitter, so I think it was a link to. Well, it was some journalist work. I think so. I'm not sure about it, but I'll send it to you later for sure. Yeah, but look, let the man smoke his weed. He deserved it.
Yeah, he must have been on steroids, man. You're not gonna destroy Tanaka like that, man.
But no joking, the way he performed that fight, and you surely heard me many times mentioning it over and over again, with how much I was surprised with his sharpness in that fight, like never before. I would not be surprised. Yeah.
But he definitely looked like somebody who was actually, I wouldn't say stoned, but he was just super relaxed. Tanaka just looked so agitated before. You could see the adrenaline was just ravaging his body, loved up so early. And the Ioka just came in, slick back gangster, big spliff in the morning. Just another day in the office. Just another victim to slay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so funny things happening in Japan. I'll surely send you the article. I'll look it up and I'll send it to you later. But yeah, I don't know what else is there to talk about. I mean, I don't know if you read my message. I'm not sure if I will be available tomorrow. Maybe not, but I don't think so. So
So in
we
terms of so you mean in terms of the fights from the UK today, I believe, and the United States?
right.
Um,
There's those two cards.
who do we have? Who's fighting?
Um, on the zone, we have Chris Eubank Jr. fighting Morrison, the return of Dimitri Bivol, but he's fighting Craig Richards.
Okay.
And, a disappointing opponent, but yeah, Katie Taylor versus Sasha Jones, and the main
Oh,
event,
oh,
Chisora Walker.
see the Katie Taylor fight could be a competitive fight,
Mhm.
but Katie Taylor just consumes me with. For me, is I can't watch Katie Taylor fight because that people may revere her as one of the greatest, but I think she's just one of the most overrated fighters I think I've ever seen, man or woman. Horrible.
Yeah,
With,
from what I saw, yeah, go
and,
on.
and with so much protection and insulation from Matchroom and Sky
Oh yeah,
Sports, gift decisions. I can't watch the. I hope Natasha Jonas knocks her out.
yeah. Look, I'm not really following the women's boxing, but I share your sentiments. I fucking hope Natasha Jones would win, and on top of that, beat her up. Because I remember that fight, that rematch between her and I think it was a Norwegian girl that she fought on the undercard of White Povetkin one. Man, that was a disgusting decision, man. And I heard the same thing about the first fight. And
Delphine Piafun, that's from Belgium.
Belgium, yeah, thank you. And I
Yeah.
remember saying things about that rematch, about how it was made, uh, her opponent being brought up for that rematch in while being in a very difficult, tough situation. Um, yeah, I mean, fuck Eddie Hearn, fuck Katie Taylor. Uh, I mean, I don't know. I'm not. Oh, the main event between Chisora and the Joseph the Matt Lab Parker. I mean,
What?
what is he saying? The amphetamines, crystal meth. I'm not really interested into this fight, but yeah, I guess
Yeah,
I will watch it for sure. I
exactly,
don't know
man.
what to say.
Josie Parker had showed so much promise when he was an amateur fighter. When I was watching him back then, officially, his ability, his combination punching and his body punching, I was very high on him, thinking, "Wow, that sort of impetus into the heavyweight ranks would be so good to watch." And he has an excellent chin. We know that he's been knocked down, but he's got up and he's actually fought and he's won the latter half of the fight with Dillian White. So he has a very good arsenal of tools that he can rely on both offensively and defensively, but just doesn't put it together. Um, too many crazy drugs binges with his best friend Tyson, and now out of the ring he thinks he's Frank Sinatra with singing and dancing and shit. So
Yeah.
and against You know, Del Boy Chisora, the only guy who can just repeatedly get pay-per-views after loss, after loss, after loss. Man,
Yes, you know.
this fight isn't it? You know, I mean, Eddie Hearn just loves to financially rape the UK public. I feel sorry for all those guys having to just keep paying exorbitant amounts, especially at a time in which just look at the retail price index in the UK and around the world, and the price of raw materials and everything else, and everything skyrocketing, and we're getting two pay-per-views in parallel between the UK and the United States, where none of the fighters are pay-per-view fighters. They're not pay-per-view fights. You've got Chris Arreola, a 40-year-old, on the pay-per-view. And let's be clear, the only reason why Arreola is fighting, because it's against his natural wishes of retirement, is because he owes a financial debt to Al Heyman in lieu of the contract he signed. So many Heyman fighters, Broner, for example, as well, a lot of them owe Al Heyman money. That's the only reason why Arreola is on this pay-per-view.
Yeah, man,
and Andy Ruiz, he's a fat Mexican motherfucker. He betrayed the trust of all of the people and the people that traveled to Saudi Arabia with his opaque, lying, lack of discipline. It happens, you know what I mean? If you got 20 million just out of the blue, you know, he went on his spending rampage and his binge rampage and ill discipline. The same old story, we see it in boxing over and over again. Charles Martin, his predecessor in that sense. Then they have a moment where they think it's about redemption, whatever. Your trainer actually sheds light on exactly what happened. You know, you start criticizing your trainer for telling the truth, and now you're a so-called changed man because you're with a new trainer. You've cut a little bit of weight. Who gives a flying fuck about Andy Ruiz? Fuck this horrible card, you know, horrible card in the UK as well with the main event. Man. So yeah, so fuck it, man. Good job, good job. You're busy tomorrow, because I wouldn't be in the mood to do a show.
Yeah, I mean, look, Andy Ruiz and Arreola. First of all, fucking pay-per-view. I'm feeling bad for the people in the US. I mean, for I'm not feeling bad for. In fact, not feeling bad at all for a retard that would pay that shit. And a sad thing for Chris Arreola. He's always been a great guy, one of the great guys in the heavyweight division. The good thing is that he's coming in at his lightest. He's career lightest weight. He doesn't even have fat. He weighted in at 228 pounds. So, and he's saying that he worked a lot during his this training camp on his defense. So, and I'm really hoping that that's really gonna be of use to him in this fight. Sorry. I'm hoping that his defense would really be improved in this fight, because I felt sad. I don't want to see him punished and knocked out, because I mean, I always like Chris Arreola. I never saw him as some really good fighter, and props to him for knocking that other blob. I mean, for giving a good performance.
Could you imagine Arreola and Kazuto Ioka with like an ounce of weed? Them two would demolish it in like 5 minutes.
Wait. Sorry. Yeah, but so he looks to be finally, and I don't know why was he waiting for the tail end of his career to get in a respectable shape. But here it is, finally in a looking in a really good shape. I'm just hoping that he doesn't get punished too much. Ruiz, at least he looks like well, after it looks like that after the first AJ fight he started eating more. At least now after the AJ rematch, it looks like he's not pigging out anymore. He dropped down to 158, I think. In fact, I don't recall what was his actual weight, but yeah, he does look lighter. He lost a lot of fat. But yeah, man, we don't give a
That's
fuck.
the clen-
We are...
that's the clenbuterol, baby.
Oh yeah, yeah. What else it could be?
That
I mean,
that's the fat burner. He's the perfect guinea pig for that drug. It's
oh
just
yeah,
designed. It's just designed for his body and all that visceral fat he has. So, yeah.
yeah. Well, and not a surprise that he went to the gym. That I mean, the choice of the trainer and of the gym is not really a surprise. He's
Yeah.
blending in well with Canelo and Julio Cesar Martinez. Yeah, good job.
Yeah, Reynoso, he's going to be cooking those T-bone steaks.
He had a lot of job to do feeding this motherfucker throughout this training camp. But just to go back quickly to Chisora Parker, and I mean to the whole Eddie Hearn situation, it looks like the contract between Sky Sports and Matchroom ended. So Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are not gonna be on Sky Sports anymore, except for well for the contracts that AJ had with Sky Sports and maybe another fighter. I'm not sure if it's Canelo or someone else. Excuse me.
Did I not say that from day one when DAZN came into the market with Eddie Hearn? I said it's a conflict of interest he has between two parties. He's going to have to make a choice. And I said it all along. Eddie Hearn will leave Sky Sports and he'll pursue DAZN straight away.
I even think I heard you saying that fairly recently, in the past month or two. I think I recall you.
I did it on a
saying...
video. I did it on the video a couple of years ago as well. I think from my other channel. But that was inevitable. To me, it was inevitable he was going to do that, and that's where Sky Sports made massive errors. They were supporting the DAZN proposition, and they were neglecting Sky Sports boxing. And Adam, the officials at Sky Sports were complicit to that. Eddie Hearn was literally using all of the Sky Sports domestic fighters for international DAZN cards, and that's where I saw the problem being crystallized. And a lot of the UK domestic cards were suffering lack of competitive fights, all their best fighters just being saved for international excursions. What was going to happen? The UK boxing market was just going to become depressed. Calendar dates that were originally scheduled to happen were going to be cut, get reduced boxing content. So it's inevitable. It came down to this crossroads and this threshold. And now Eddie Hearn, realizing that Sky Sports, not only are they losing global subscribers because international rights are being bought up by much larger corporations who are coming into the market. We're getting, Amazon is beginning to buy a lot of packages, and I'm hearing that their coverage of even domestic football over there is so damn good. And they've got the market capitalization just to take Sky and Rupert Murdoch, etc., out of the water. Ain't going to be a problem for them. But their budgets are big. are reducing. They're losing a hell of a lot of content that went from Sky Sports to BT, and being divided, between. It depends on the Deregulation Act in the UK. Now, they don't really like monopolies too much, so they'll try and divide it between different companies. They don't really like these monopolies. So, but ultimately, it comes down to the size of the bid. And football, they tend to bid in the billions, so it's a lot of money. So they're not going to wrangle too much. But the zone's mistake, and it was always a mistake, was that what they're doing now is that I think they're going to begin to pull away from the United States. They're going to tend to focus a lot more in Europe and Asia, where their largest revenue streams are. The zone should have really have come into the UK before the United States, but we all know that the state just seems to. It's just the romantic area. It's the so-called home of boxing. It always has been to a certain extent. So that's the market everybody wants to target. But the United States is finished as a country. I've been saying it for so long. They've. If you could just break down that country, that all of their figures that they've been published for the last 35, 40 years are all literally lies. It's just growth rates, inflation rates, whatever. That's not. It's a discussion for another channel. But as an economist, I can tell you that all of the indices that they actually use to project all of their economic data is actually false. And I'll do that in another sense. So, and boxing is a niche sport as well. It's been reducing so. It's a dead market for me. It's a dead country. It's a dead markets. So, Eddie Hearn now with his endeavors with DAZN, and they're restructuring as well. We'll see what happens, but I'm not surprised, and it's a good thing as well. If Sky can now start doing, if they want to actually go into direct competition with DAZN, and they can now have a position where nobody has an exclusivity with Sky, and that was always their problem. Eddie Hearn is the only promoter. If any other promoter wants to come on, they have to negotiate directly with Eddie Hearn, not even with Sky Sports directly. So he was always the intermediary as well as the exclusive promoter. So now if they're opening up and they're able to take, that is, if they're still interested in boxing, which I'm not sure about, but it does generate a lot of money. The UK boxing fans are extremely passionate, so I don't see why they should just forsake it and jettison boxing as a whole. But if they're able to, MTK Global are doing some good things. There are a lot of good independent promoters. They can try and help promote. They can go back and do what Box Nation was buying rights of international fights, try and put them on. But the time difference tends to kill their market for that. It's, no, I don't know how many people can keep staying up at 4:00 in the morning. It's already difficult. Yeah, it's already difficult on the Saturday evening primetime TV with the number of channels available. So it's a hard nut to crack. But for boxing fans, why not, man? Why just leave it as an open platform and just buy and sell whatever fights you can from. I don't care if it's even small promoters, whatever. I don't mind that at all. Amateur boxing, go back to that. BT was doing. That's why I've always loved the BT Sports, because they've always shown so much amateur boxing over the years, which I always watch, the World Championships, etc. I don't know, man, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's even a possibility that they may start working with well, what's the guy's name? The other promoter, Frank Warren. I'm not sure, because he's doing some moves right now. It's been reported that he linked up with I don't remember who, but apparently he's getting some financial injection. But the thing is, I thought that he's showing his fights on BT, so I don't know. I don't really understand the situation. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, I mean, at least a good thing that that he's moving all those fighters, freeing the room, and another topic. I mean, it's not worth saying much about it, as we as a channel, we are not really about the drama and all the bullshit stories. We are not the TMZ of boxing here, but apparently that Pacquiao was supposed to fight, supposed to be in the negotiations with this fighter from Top Rank, which I was about to make an episode on. I was about to make a breakdown episode on how to beat him, Southpaw versus Southpaw. But apparently many Pacquiao signed the deal. Crawford didn't sign his deal, and after that it came out also that apparently the Arab Emirates, the investors were not able to come in with money. But even before that money situation, the money problem, uh, Pacquiao had no problem signing the fight, but Crawford for some reason refused to do so. So I don't know. The rumor is he's gonna end up fighting that guy, Josecito Lopez, who's not a terrible fighter, but man, I just wanted to say fuck these welterweights. They're clowns.
See, with this Manny Pacquiao situation, there's been a lot of opinions, and I don't think a lot of people understand the situation in the Philippines and what Manny Pacquiao is doing as a senator campaigning for president. Philippines is going through not only a lot of restructuring and foreign direct investment coming in, but they're simultaneously fighting ISIS. They've been the government, the president Rodrigo has actually been reaching out to China and Huawei, their massive sort of Apple equivalent corporation, to try and come into the Philippines to develop what they call sort of new technological cities, which incorporate surveillance, etc. And they're also very interested in FDI investment from the Middle East to sustain the development. So what we're seeing as well is that there are different factions, and I think our friend Diego mentioned it a little while ago. There are different factions within the Pacquiao camp who want different things for Manny Pacquiao. So from my understanding, there's a degree of wrangling and sort of infighting. You've got Manny Pacquiao's own manager, trainer. They're looking for one fighter, and then this rumor has it that the investors are looking who are building a stadium. They're looking for a fight against somebody else. So very hard to gauge what is going on. And with a contract situation, when you don't have the original source documents in front of you, it's very hard. We're not really into this whole sort of speculation. You've got different media professionals who have a vested interest in different fighters, and they have a different path that they take. Some of them are not independent or impartial. Very hard to know what exactly is going on. But if you know anything about Manny Pacquiao and his career and the level of competition and order that he's achieved, it's kind of hard to criticizing that he's ducking or he's procrastinating, or whether the source of funds is what the Pacquiao detractors are moaning about, that there's been no verification of originator funds. But I kind of I kind of find that very hard to believe as well. So, according to the sources, Manny has signed an agreement, whether it's an executed or unexecuted, whether it's a draft or whether it's actually a legally binding contract. Hard to know. They have the documents, so there's no reason why they can't shed further light onto what it is, or even releasing it into the public domain. But the split, that, from my understanding, that Pacquiao and Crawford, I think it's like a 4-1 split, something like that. 40 million Pacquiao, 10 million Crawford. If that is the reports, I don't know. I've not really been following the story. It's just listening to a little bit of here and there, something like that.
Yes, it is indeed. 40 millions for Pacquiao and 10 millions for Crawford, which would be more than he ever gained in his career.
Yeah.
And more than he is deserving.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pacquiao is we know that he's also reticent about fighting in the United States. Las Vegas would be his only territory due to the tax situation over in Vegas. But for somebody who's always had problems with his tax management situation, and he obviously wants to reduce his tax burden as well. So it would make sense for him to actually fight in the Middle East as well, not only to pacify his investors, because he's thinking about the longevity of his country. So he's going to have more of a vested interest to listen to what those representatives from the UAE are trying to decree to him, because ultimately he wants to carry on that business relationship once he starts campaigning and he becomes the president, because he's going to rely on FDI is crucial for the Philippines' longevity going forward. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Manny Pacquiao, he voluntarily relinquished his WBA Super Championship belt. I think that was some sort of an amicable agreement he had with Al Heyman to say that, look, belts really don't matter to me, although maybe I want to be a unified champion, something I haven't done before. But he could fight Spence anytime he wants for those unified belts. So having the WBO belt doesn't really matter. I think he said to Al Heyman, look, fine, I'll relinquish the belt, or Ugas gets upgraded from his regular to a super. The WBA never ordered the consolidations. He can't say Pacquiao's ducking anybody, or you don't release a belt and get awarded a champion in recess stage. And if you actually stripped off the belt, you don't get that recess stage in which you can fight for the belt anytime you want. So I think it was an amicable agreement. Ugas gets the belt, gets upgraded. Spence can fight Ugas for the third belt, and in return, Al Heyman will agree to showcase and promote the Manny Pacquiao promotional fighters. And he's, from my understanding, he's signed a hell of a lot of fighters from different jurisdictions, maybe one or two from Mexico and one from Africa as well. So there are a lot, and we're starting to see a lot of his fighters fighting all over the shop. Guy who fought Manny Rodriguez. We saw Jervin Ancajas back now. That's why he moved to the PBC as well from Top Rank. We're seeing another Manny Pacquiao fighter fighting Naoya Inoue, but that's not obviously on the PBC. ESPN has obviously got the larger budget, so he's going to have to fight on there unless it went to a purse bids. I'm not sure if it did, but there's a hell of a lot of fighters. And Manny's also thinking about continuity, the next generation. So his interests, his proclivities is not essentially on what he wants. It's what's best for his country, in the sense that once he takes over or becomes the president, and also what's next for Manny Pacquiao promotion. So kind of selfless, and it's the right thing to do. But a lot of people are just casting aspersions just on just on the isolated situation rather than understanding the sort of macroeconomic position of what's going on overall and what he's trying to do, both in terms of horizontal and lateral diversification of the country and his own promotional company.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was. You told me a couple of days ago all about this that you were talking right now about Pacquiao reaching an agreement with PBC and Al Heyman to basically give up his belt and instead concentrate on his future. I mean, to his talents who are signed to him to be showcased on PBC shows in the US. And that was something that I wasn't thinking of yet. Makes a lot of sense. It's such a great point, just like the one you you mentioned on a couple of episodes ago when it comes to that robbery of Emmanuel Rodriguez, who was supposed to fight Donny Nietes. Sorry, no Donny Nietes, Nonito Donaire. Yeah, so great points.
Yeah, his fighters are starting to get a lot of political leverage, both from Heyman and I guess Heyman wants to pacify Manny to a certain extent, but we don't want to see that. We don't want to see his Manny Pacquiao promotional fighters receiving those decisions on the PBC card, which is already racially aligned to PBC fighters as it is getting the highly dubious decisions. But that's the way Al Heyman works. If you only look at his contractual situations and the terms and conditions that he's brought forward from the days of when he was in the music industry, and if you look at his agreement and what the fighters have to sign and the revenue and the litigation that is involved if they don't accept those terms and what happens, it is so punitive. That's why the fighters are protected for that reason, because of those terms and conditions. And there's no exit clause, and they can only arbitrate at certain places in the United States, in Los Angeles, where arbitration always rules in favor of the record company or the promoter, not the artist. So there is no violations. They literally have no recourse to challenge those rights. So nor can they win any appeals or win their case and actually walk away from their agreement. So that's why these promoters are controlling the narrative so badly. It's due to these agreements. So it's a cyclical poison between the fighter, the promoter, and those contracts, and what we're seeing on those cards.
Well, yeah, well said. Okay, so I mean, is there any other topic that you want to discuss about?
Is there anything on the Areola Ruiz undercard?
Yeah, you're right. Let me check it out. Andy Ruiz box rec.
I think Andy Ruiz will get a. If I'm going to make a prediction in that fight, I think Andy Ruiz will get a stoppage. They're literally rebranding, repackaging him. So Areola is a 40-year-old. He's gonna put him over. It's just about Areola's debt repayment. So there's no future upside in him whatsoever. This is just
Yeah, makes sense, definitely.
Advise the compensation being 15%. That's just a repayment of that, and all of the other monies that Heyman has lost on Areola, whatever they'll get. So I'd go for Ruiz. Aurelius Tough can take punches, but a 40-year-old now, they'll probably give Ruiz a gift TKO in the between 5 and 7 or something. I don't know. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm on the box track event.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's okay. Oh,
You
hold
got
on.
Fondora. Yeah, you got that.
Yeah. And okay, we have. Oh, in fact, I don't care about the Adrian Granados fight. Omar Figueroa Jr. versus Abel Ramos. Abel Ramos, I think he was the one who just fought Ugas. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
We have.
He was the one who knocked out Brian Perello, who should have beaten Tony Harris, knocked him out in the last round. So against Figueroa, that's the ill-disciplined Figueroa, yeah? The guy who fought Tony DeMarco a number of years ago. I think it's that one. Okay, that could be a... Ramos is a horribly one-dimensional fighter as well, man, but yeah, that's not a brilliant... I think Erislandy Lara, the American dream, who still can't speak English, is fighting as well.
Yeah, he is fighting Thomas Lamana, whose alias is Cornflakes.
Damn.
Yes, you know more. And like you said, Sebastian Fundora is fighting Jorge Cota.
Yeah.
So,
Fundora, watch the... Very different. It's almost like a paradox to his height, the way he fights. It's aggressive, but I don't know. I haven't seen too much of him to make any sort of conclusive opinion, but kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
Heck, it's got a bit of power. I don't know about his technical style too much. I might watch that out of curiosity. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah, me too. I'll watch it just to see how well is he going to perform, but I haven't drawn any conclusion yet when it comes to Fondora, because I've only seen his last fight on the undercard of Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia. But yeah, that's it for this weekend.
Fondora fights at which weight? 154?
I think so. Oh, let me
and
go
he's
back
6 feet
to
6, yeah?
some crazy height. Hold on, I'm back. Super welterweight, yeah, 154, and his height is 6'5.5". Yeah, 6'6", with an 80 inches reach.
How many?
Man.
80.
80, yeah. Fucking long arms.
It's like a pterodactyl wingspan.
It's like a custom-made fighter on Fight Night Championships. When the guys would the fighters with craziest reach. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But okay, so I'm looking at the schedule. That's all when it comes to this weekend. The next week, look, I'm not trying to act like some boxing hipster or whatever, but I can't really get excited about Canelo Alvarez fighting Billy Joe Saunders. Now, indeed, I would admit, however, that seeing Saunders being in such a great shape, at least by what one of his Instagram photos was suggesting, it kind of gives me a hope that he may perform well and give him trouble at some point, to some point rather. But look, we know he cannot knock out Alvarez to save his life. even if he 12-0s him, Canelo would still probably get a split decision. So either we get the best possible version of Billy Joe Saunders, which I'm not sure how how probable is that shit. I don't think so, especially not at 168. But even if we do so, it doesn't mean a lot. We know who's gonna get the decision. Now, if he completely sucks like he's been sucking in the past, in his whole career, indeed, except for the Lemieux fight, it means that he would get brutalized. So I don't really care about it. So on the other
Billy,
card, the next week
yeah,
there's
Bi-
Kurbanov versus Smith, and that's it.
I mean, Billy Joe is just, if you watch him recently, it's become so horribly flat-footed, and people don't really understand that. They see him moving around, but look at just look at the shape of his feet when he's moving. He's hopping on his entire, not only just his midsole, but the front and back. So his heel, he's he's flat-footed as hell now, and any sort of athletic traits that he once had I think it's been irrevocably lost now. He doesn't have it, and moving up to 168 pounds just to compensate your ill discipline your entire career ain't gonna work. Um, he looked so bad against Martin Murray. You know that was almost shocking. His deterioration that badly, just leaping in, he was out of breath so early. Is a good training camp going to correct those imbalances? No, because I think they have manifested into his body now. Official, I don't. He may look good for a few rounds, and Canelo Alvarez is. Well, we talked about him repeatedly. He's as flat. This is a fight between two flat-footed fighters who are horrible. Canelo is so badly flat-footed now. It's almost. But that's what happens when you're in nothing but compromise fights and where the outcome of the fight is already preordained. You can just walk flat-footed, with a mid-guard leaned over, and Canelo is no longer setting up punches, heavy hooks, yeah, just yapping with these horrible hooks. Canelo is horrible to watch. My God.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, go on, go on.
That people just seem to get an erection over his technical and his boxing ability, but where? Explain how. I ain't seen it. Last time I see him in a good fight was in the Golovkin fights, but that's where he had to fight. And that's where he was getting beaten up in both fights.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. Who gives a fuck about this fight, man?
Yeah, he can talk all about now after years of ducking fighters and throwing his belt in the trash. Now he's at a weight class where he's not surrounded by many threats. So he's like, okay, I'm all about unifying and becoming the undisputed. And talking about each weight class should only have one champion. Which, yeah, all the right things to say, only that we haven't seen you doing so for the past, for multiple years. For the past 10 years, you were doing just the opposite. Meanwhile, since stepping his foot to 168 weight class, he's been called out by Dimitri Bivol numerous times, and indeed, Bivol is at light heavyweight, but he's a small guy, and I would give him credit for beating Bivol if Bivol would step down to 168 like he said he would multiple times. But Canelo has been acting like Dimitri Bivol doesn't exist at all, because he knows he would give him hell. Other thing than that, well, look, Canelo, what I saw from him from the Kovalev fight on, he saw that at this weight class, and being that his gas tank, although it improved somehow, he yeah, suspiciously improved, although it was never been great. So he has to carry a high guard all the time. And not improvement, but a smart change that he made since the Kabbalah fight on, is that he's keeping that high guard. He's doing a lot more of blocking instead of using his upper body movement.
Yes.
Instead, to preserve his stamina. And so he swings just one hook or two hooks all the time, just because he has to keep his punches hard at this weight class in order to be respected by his opponents, to prevent them from getting courageous and attacking him with volume. And attacking him with volume, well, just like with a lot of counter punchers, that's often a problem for counter punchers. And so what Canelo is doing is he would swing just one crazy huge left hook or overhand right, or very, very short combos out of that high guard. And now he's doing much more of blocking. And that's what he does. That's nothing complicated about it. I would say I would credit his defense. His high guard defense is very, very good, even excellent. I'm gonna give him credit, but nothing impressive other than that. Nothing impressive. So was when it comes to impressive defense, high guard defense. So was Mthlane's defense.
Yeah, exactly. If Billy Joe had any remnants of his footwork, his athletic footwork in the past, he would be able to do a Sonny Edwards on Alvarez against somebody who's unbelievably flat-footed, never had any sort of educated feet. He showed good cutting off the ring, good hooks, left hooks to the body to stop Amir Khan from moving in certain directions. That was the one fight in which he showed some good boxing ability to eventually, get to the target after the second round. Khan didn't win no 4 rounds. That's bullshit. Alvarez actually showed very, very good educated patience in that fight. Break him down, trap him, and then knock him out. That was actually impressive against somebody who was going to just keep moving, because he'd never had the firepower to trade in the middle of the ring. With Saunders, it's going to be a case that he will move early on, but eventually that stamina cannot be corrected unless Billy Joe is on a significant amount of EPO, and he's been taking it throughout his whole camp to boost his stamina. So that stamina is going to, the natural balance of his stamina now is going to come into equation after the 4th, 5th round, and he's going to have to stand there and literally trade, and that's where the fight will change. And Saunders, from what I saw, what Shafati Faisal was able to do to him when they were trading in those periods, it's going to be downhill from him from that point onwards.
Yeah, I think so too, man.
But enough of that fight.
Yeah, so that's it. I would guess my last thing, the last thing that I would like to say is, I would like to remind people to check the GoFundMe link in the description that I'm also posting right now one more time in the chat. Read the description. Read the description and who's needing the donations. So
Gonzalo, just like to acknowledge the efforts of a lot of people who've done some tremendous fundraising over the last sort of 2 weeks. It's been a lot of them, BDAs started it, Unrivaled Boxing. Talker did his marathon stream, and D Jefferson and Speak Your Mind, him and the Donut Crew have done a lot of great fundraising as well over the past 9-10 days, whatever else. So, it's not easy doing these streams. Life is difficult enough as it is, but when you're doing it constantly and all of the people coming in and out, and keep spreading the word and just keeping the fundraising going. And it's amazing the way the boxing community have rallied, to raise over $15,000. That's, even the LDBC contributing as well.
Oh yeah.
So that's nice. That's what the boxing. That's the box. That should be the personification of the boxing community, because it's unfortunately become an area where people are airing their problems, and it's almost become like a public spectacle for everybody else to watch. Two people going at it, and all of these nonsensical beefs and threats and whatever else. It's really become a toxic place. Almost become like a Twitter or a Facebook or whatever else. So it's nice when we have something that can reset that, can actually reflect something positive, and showing that the communities can come together, in one for a worthwhile cause against a very, very decent man who we've never met in person, but from speaking with Gonzalo for a hell of a long time on the BDA, was like, and speaking to him on other channels, just very, very, very nice guy, and he's got a beautiful son. I don't know if you saw some of the videos official. He's just got those deep sort of inquisitive eyes, where he's almost like downloading all of the information, and his brain is sort of uncoding, but he hasn't got obviously the ability to sort of speak now, but just gives you the impression he knows exactly what's going on. But yeah, God bless,
man.
Yeah,
Nothing but the best.
Yeah, let's hope he can. All of the infections and the pneumonia can dissipate, and his poor wife as well. Regards to her, has been there non-stop, sleeping on the floor, probably going through hell. So yeah, let's hope they can get some peace and happiness. Bring their son home, and go back to some sort of tranquility and have a new life raising their child. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that would be it. I guess I will give shout outs to everybody tuning in, or to all of those who are going to catch this stream later. John Gonzalez, Nes Mendoza, Mr. Mendoza, Duck, Sina Musia, that guy, who was there, Andre, Vader D, Triple JJJ, of course, yeah, Andre Rodriguez, Mark, and Rival Boxing Talk. Who else? Yeah, that would be it. So
yeah, many thanks for everybody for joining us for the live YouTube stream of the show, and we'll be back when official has I don't know. We'll wait for official. He's obviously busy tomorrow. I don't think I'm gonna be doing a solo stream, because the fights, I don't know. It's going to be hard watching these cards from looking at the cards, but we'll see. We may be back Monday, Tuesday, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility that I'm gonna be available maybe later tomorrow night, maybe not at the time that we are usually starting our streams, but a bit later. I'm not sure about it. Anyways, we are not sure if there's gonna be anything important to say about the fights that are taking place tonight. So yeah, maybe we come back another day. So
Plus,
yeah.
I have to travel and I have to go to Berlin during the week. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, anyways, you know, guys, for sure when there are some good fights that we appreciate and like, and topics that we like to discuss about, we will come back with an episode on it. We will cover it. Um, but being that these fights tonight, well, they're not very inspiring. I mean, we don't know. Maybe don't be surprised if we come up with an episode even tomorrow or some other day. Maybe not. You never know. But the important fights and important topics are always gonna be covered by this channel.
yeah. On that note, we'll bid you all sayonara.